In late 2023, I started using a Canon Powershot A470 as my everyday carry camera. And after the past year of using the A470 and a couple other digicams, I wanted to share some of my thoughts and give a little bit of advice and pointers to anybody who's thinking about picking one up in 2025 or may have received one as a gift in 2024. So I think to start, I sort of want to contextualize why I started using digicams in the first place. Normally, my everyday carry is usually a Ricoh GR, the first APS-C version. And I love that camera to bits. I love the fixed wide angle. And it came to me at a time in my life where I really, really needed a great everyday carry. And it made me a better photographer because of it. It was always with me. And I just learned how to shoot and see in a new way because I had such a great but pocketable camera that was with me all the time, every day. After a while though, there were a lot of changes in sort of the way photography played a role in my life. I was no longer doing it as part of my career. I was doing it purely for myself. And I sort of fell out of the habit of actually like taking a lot of pictures with me everywhere I went. But then randomly one day I went into a closet and pulled out a Canon Powershot A470. I made a video about this and released it about a year ago, and it sort of re-sparked a lot of my interest in everyday carry photography. I also, a couple of months after that, inherited this, which is an Powershot A630. Similar vibes, slightly higher resolution, but it has full manual exposure control and a screen that flips out and an optical viewfinder and just is generally a little bit more usable. I prefer it slightly less to the A470 for reasons I'll kind of get into in a minute, or honestly, I'll actually probably just get into them in a different video. I'll do a real breakdown of all these cameras. For the past year, it's been the A470, occasionally the A630, and because I just couldn't help myself, a Powershot G2. I've maybe only taken this out 5 or 6 days, but it was very cheap on eBay. Because it came without a battery, and finding a battery was pretty easy to do. So here it is. This is a nostalgia bait for me, basically. I remember my dad having one of these, and this is one of the first cameras of his that he actually let me touch. So special memories associated with this camera. A couple tips on how to just get better pictures out of these cameras. They really have their limitations. The sensors are not ideal. They suck in low light. The screens often do not give you all the information you need, and most of them will not have any sort of full manual exposure control. Embrace built-in flash on these cameras. Chances are you probably have one. It's like super duper pros the aesthetic. And sort of related to that is keep your compositions really, really clean. You're not gonna have shallow depth of field as something to really work to give you layers, but having those small sensors will sometimes force you to be really, really precise about your compositions, and I find that super useful. I love that style of shooting, and I think it's a great skill for any photographer, whether you're just casually interested or very experienced, to learn or to develop. Underexpose just a little bit. I usually keep my camera set at about 1/3 or 2/3 stops underexposure. It just makes sure not too many of your highlights run away, and it gives you a little more room to kind of roll them off yourself in post. I'll talk a little bit more about what I do and don't do to edit the JPEGs. And speaking of JPEGs, make sure that your compression is as low as possible. Canon cameras, which I mostly use, refer to it as fine or super fine, and make sure you're using super fine. The difference is really, really noticeable, especially if the pictures really have to like go anywhere, such as like you might be printing them. I hope you're printing them. And having the lower compression JPEGs makes a big difference. And of course, make sure you're shooting at the highest resolution available on your camera. Keep your edits in post as simple as possible. I find I rarely ever touch anything other than the tone panel and the curves. And the curves is usually just like I have a preset curve saved, and I'll just apply that to every photo just to make sure that every white point, black point is the same. Keep it really really subtle. The JPEGs will not give you any room to work with. These are not raw photographs. But if you find just the right way to tweak them, you'll get really, really good results. And especially if you're printing, don't forget about playing with sharpening and noise reduction, especially color noise reduction. I found to be really, really useful to making sure that these print nicely and look great on social media or any platform. Giving buying advice about these is a little tough right now because the market has really, really taken off, and it's kind of hard to say, like, how much longer will this last, or is it too late? Am I posting this late? Are all the good ones gone? The prices are being driven up by crazy YouTubers. I get it. I would say the best way to get a digicam is ask your parents or grandparents if they still have theirs. That is how I ended up with this. This was from my dad's partner. She had it lying around. She wasn't doing anything with it, somehow still had it. And I was like, great, I'll take it. You never know what could turn up. And there's something about having an object that you have kind of inherited that makes it more fun and more personal to use, I would say. General price points to keep in mind. If you are just casually interested in this, you want to pick something up as like a toy or just for fun, don't spend more than $100 on it, or like $150 maybe, depending if it has like a certain feature you're really looking for. Don't spend more than, pocket change on this, basically. Like, find something in good shape. I think right now around that $100, $150 mark is sort of a sweet spot for something that's in good condition and will serve you well. And make sure you find a point and shoot camera that takes AA batteries and SD cards. I cannot imagine how annoying it would be to be using these cameras if I also had to be running around trying to find discontinued media formats or batteries that no one makes anymore. If you wanted to lean a little bit more into these cameras, I'd say around the $500 mark is where I think there's a lot of interesting options. From there, you can get something like a sort of beat up Lumix LX100, or I've seen a lot of Sony ZV-1s available around that price point. The older RX100s seem really, really great in that. I've not personally used any of those cameras, though they've interested me for a while. And something that'll give you still a fixed lens, like a good fixed lens, and full manual exposure control, and maybe if you're really, really lucky, some decent video capability. Would highly recommend going for sort of that price bracket. If you are looking at the Ricoh GRs and Fuji X100s and all the $1,000 plus point and shoot cameras, I really hope that you are someone who really, really takes their photography very seriously, and you're investing in a tool that's gonna really move you creatively and give you a lot of the things you need to like make images as best as you can possibly make them. The only reason I have a Ricoh is because it was really, really cheap 10 years ago. If I were buying one now, I'm not sure I would be buying one now. Let's put it that way. I have long been a big believer in the benefits of having a point and shoot camera, and I cannot tell you how much I've grown as a photographer by having a high quality point and shoot camera that actually is with me everywhere I go, and that I can't be too precious about or doesn't take too much work to use. Just the principle of having it in a pocket on you everywhere you go makes such a big difference and always keeps you on the lookout for picture opportunities and helps you learn how to observe the world in a way that good photographers do. I found that digicams have been a really, really sort of great lo-fi alternative to that. They've been really fun, both as conversation pieces when you pull them out. People are always surprised to see a point and shoot camera again. And there's something just really great about having a camera that isn't your phone.